Hi, everyone. It's Melody here from Learning in Progress. Thank you so much for tuning in for this week's Teacher Tidbit. Now, I want to introduce you to an online learning platform that I have found to be a great supplement to any curriculum for math, science, ELA, or social studies. It's called Freckle. If you've never used Freckle, I highly recommend you at least try the free version, see how you like it, because I know it's been really beneficial for my students in grades K through 6. I'm going to go ahead and open it up, show you the nuts and bolts, walk you through how to set up your Freckle classroom, and then later in a different teacher tidbit, we'll look at different aspects of Freckle more in depth. All right, so I've logged into my Freckle account, and I'm going to walk you through how to set up your own classroom. So I'm going to add my first class. For the purposes of this video, I'm just going to put sample class. And I'm teaching 5th grade this year, so I'll go ahead and select 5th grade. Now, this is really cool. You can actually select what subjects you want your students to have access to. So I'll walk you through a little bit more in detail what Freckle has to offer. But what I want to point out is that you can either assign specific assignments to your students, or they can log in for just some ongoing practice. If you are, for instance, only using Freckle for math, you may not want your students to be able to do ongoing practice in ELA, social studies, or science. So in that case, you can actually toggle these off so that your students only have access to the subject you want them to practice. For the purposes of this video, I'm actually going to leave all 4 subjects on. You're going to add a student, first name, last name, and their grade level, which is defaulting to 5th grade since that's what I chose. And then you can even choose their home language. Now, for now, there's only 3 options, but I found this to be really beneficial if you have some language learners. Something I want to point out is whatever you type here in the first name and last name is what your students are actually going to input when they log in. Now, the reason I point this out is in case there are any typos or misspellings, your student's not going to be able to log in. So if a student ever says that they can't log in, this is the first place I would check. Just make sure there's no typos in there. I'm going to go ahead and log myself in or put myself in my class. All right, so now I have a sample class of 1 student. At any point, if you get a new student or you need to change, for instance, if you found a typo and you need to edit a student's name, you can go ahead, click on this settings icon, and then either rename the class, add students, or even print login cards for your students to keep in their pencil boxes. That way they don't forget their password, or class code, I should say. All right, so now I'm briefly going to walk you through what Freckle has to offer. This is going to be fast, so please know that you are not expected to be a Freckle expert at the end of this video. I just want you to know what they have to offer. So for both math and ELA, it's divided into 3 areas. There's content, standards, and reports. Let's go ahead and look over the ELA content. They have libraries, so this is a whole ton of informational and fictional texts that's differentiated for your students' individual learning levels. There's also skills practice. So I've used these in the past for a quick check, or even for quizzes if I just need a quick look to see if students understand how to find main idea or how to find explicit information. This would be the area for you. Word study is really looking at how words are made up. Patterns. For primary grades, it's great if you're learning some phonics skills, but it's also nice for upper elementary just to give them some ongoing spelling and listening practice. Now here, there's some sight words for our really young learners, and then also some decodables. Again, if your students are learning to read, or if you're an upper grade teacher and you have some intervention kiddos, this might be something you consider using for them. Now, there's also a benchmark assessment. I recommend giving these probably no more than a few times a year, but it's really to see how your students are progressing on grade level standards. All right, so math, looking over, and I know I'm going fast here, but I really want you to see everything that this platform has. So in math, what you're going to do, or what you're going to see here, is we have the adaptive math. So this, no matter what grade level your students are at, this is kind of that ongoing practice I was talking about earlier. So for instance, maybe you're working on fractions if you're an upper grade teacher and you're working in the domain of fractions. And you tell your students for homework or even classwork, maybe while they're waiting for a lesson with you, you want them to do some ongoing adaptive practice in the domain of fractions. That means all of your students are going to log in, they're going to click on fractions, and then they're going to work at their learning level. So your benchmark students and above are going to work on grade level standards and maybe even some material from the next grade level, whereas your intervention kids are going to work on foundational skills to help better prepare them for the grade level lessons. Targeted practice is where you get to assign a specific standard. It could be a standard at the grade level you're teaching, or it could be a standard for your intervention kids or a standard for your gifted students. Fact practice, I got to tell you, kids love fact practice because they really rack up the coins in these. But this is really focused on the 4 operations. So adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, just that constant ongoing practice is great. And I really love that Freckle in the last year or two, they actually added some negative integers as well. So we have something for our older students. Now, oh my goodness, this section, Extend Thinking, I love this section, and it really needs to be almost a video on its own, so I'm not going to get too deep into it. But I highly recommend that you look into those inquiry-based lessons. It is an opportunity for your students to practice their problem-solving skills. I do these regularly in partners before a test or quiz to help them review the standards that I've already taught. Constructed responses and depth of knowledge, again, also really focusing on those higher order thinking skills, word problem, word problems, and applying the standards that they've learned into real world situations. And again, we have those benchmark assessments similar to ELA. All right, so I really wanted to focus on ELA and math today. Just some quick information on social studies and science. They are complete units. So they incorporate literacy skills. They have articles and texts that go along with those lessons. Science has a lot of PBL, project-based learning activities that encourage collaboration and teamwork. So I highly recommend, if you have the premium version, that you look at those. I've used them myself in the past, and I have found them to be really engaging resources. All right, so that was a quick overview of Freckle. I really hope that you try it out with your students this year. I have found it to be really engaging and useful and easy to use as a teacher. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to write me in the comments section. I would love to hear from you. Other than that, I hope to see you next time for our next teacher tidbit.